All right, test. Test that your images can be detected and tracked. Okay, and then same thing, take a screenshot and then put it in this set of Google Slides. All right, so basically what we have been doing in the demo so far, okay, and then just take a screenshot of all your images being detected and tracked and then upload it to this Google slide. Okay, I will paste the link to the slide over here in our chat.
Sure, is click on build or build and run?
You can click on, if your phone is connected, you can just click build and run.
Okay.
Okay, so just paste it here. Yeah, just give everyone a bit of time, and then I'll go over to the sheet and check. Application. Okay, so on top of these basic functionalities, okay, we might want some additional functionalities. Right, so to fully utilize the Vuforia plugin, okay, we have to look into the Vuforia API. Okay, so API stands for Application Programming Interface. So it is basically something that lets two different software communicate with each other. Right, so in this case, in our case, the Vuforia API lets Unity communicate with Vuforia. Okay, so there are two separate softwares, right? Unity and Vuforia, but with the help of this API, the two of them can communicate, and we can make use of this communication to create our applications. Right, so this Vuforia API, what it does is it lets us, the developers, access classes and functions that we can use to affect how our application works. Okay, so I've included this link so you can see the complete list of classes and functions. Okay, I won't be going through every single one of them. Okay, we'll just take a look at some of the more important ones. Okay, some of the more basic and important ones. All right, so before we use this Vuforia API, okay, we have to add a using statement at the top of our scripts. Okay, so you can see at the bottom, okay, the one highlighted with the box saying using Vuforia. Okay, so once we have included that line, we can let our Unity project know that okay, we'll be using the Vuforia API. So whenever we type anything to do with Vuforia, Unity will understand and be able to process that line. Right, so add that using statement. Okay, so once we have that using statement, okay, we are ready to use the Vuforia API. Okay, so for this portion of the class, we'll just take a look at one of the basic features, which is toggling our AR camera on the fly. All right, because as a user, okay, as users of any application, we want to be able to control the application. Okay, so when we start the AI application, okay, we wouldn't want to immediately use the camera. Right, we want our users to be able to control that. Okay, so to do that, we'll use these two lines here. Okay, Vuforia behavior dot instance dot enabled equals true and equals false. So basically, when I say equals true, my camera turns on. When I say equals false, my camera turns off. Okay, so this variable, this instance variable, it works very similarly to what we had last sem in the game manager. Okay, so in our case, it gives us a reference to the AR behavior of our application. Okay, so we are basically just telling our Unity application that to turn on and turn off Vuforia. Okay, so what we can do is we can put these two lines, the enabled false, enabled true, into a function, okay, and then have that function be called whenever a UI button is pressed. Right, so the implementation will look like this. We will just have a class, can be any class you want, and then we have this function called toggle AR, and in the function we will just check if the Vuforia is enabled, we will disable it. and then vice versa. If it's disabled, we will enable it back. And then we will link this function to a button, okay, in the inspector. Okay, and we will link it to the on click. Okay, so once our button is clicked, it will call this toggle AR function, which will check whether Vuforia is enabled or not, and then if it is, I will disable or enable it. So once we have that set up, we will add this button to a canvas, okay, and then once we do that, our application should be able to toggle AR on the fly. All right, so I'll head into my demo. So I'll head back to Unity. All right, so back on Unity, okay, this is where I left off just now with my 3 image targets. All right, so what I will do now is I'll add a canvas. I already have one here. So let's take a look at what's inside. Yeah, I'll enable this. Okay, so we add a canvas. Then in a canvas, we will add one button, okay? This AR toggle. I will switch to my 2D mode. Okay, so I'll have this, okay, this text here, I will just disable. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so I'll have this toggle AR button here. Okay, and then in this button, I already have this link here, but I'll just remove it. Okay, I'll remove it. Okay, so just create a canvas, and then within the canvas, create one button. Okay, the button, try and make it a larger size. If I were to create one default button right now, if I right click and create button, okay, you can see that it's very small. Okay, you can see that it's very small compared to this button that I have here. Okay, so why is the default button so tiny? It's because this default button up here is designed for your desktops, your laptops, right? Your big screen experiences. Okay, but when we're dealing with our phone, generally we want our buttons to be bigger. Okay, why? Because our fingers are not as refined as as a mouse cursor, as this pointer here. So we want our buttons to be bigger. Okay, so for my button, I set the width and the height to be 250 by 250. Okay, just a square because that's usually the easiest to tap. Okay, you can set it any size you want. Just make sure it's big and tappable. Right, so this default button, okay, just for comparison's sake, right, it's very small compared to this AR button here. So I'll just delete that away. Okay, so right now what I'll do is after I've created my button, now I can start creating my scripts. Okay, so make sure you have your Visual Studio open as well. Okay, if you haven't opened it, just open it now. Okay, and then what I'll do is in my assets, I will create one scripts folder. Okay, then I'll create a new C# script. Okay, and then for my C# script, I will just name it AR toggle. Okay, so once you have, okay, just let it compile again. Okay, so once you have created this AR toggle, okay, double click it, okay, and then open it in Visual Studio. Okay, so I'll head over to Visual Studio now. Okay, so this is what my class looks like in Visual Studio. Right now, it's completely empty. Okay, so for this class, what we'll handle is just basically turning on and turning off Vuforia whenever I click that button in the scene. All right, so before I do that, I have to let this class know that I want to use the Vuforia API. Okay, so here I have to include using Vuforia. Okay, so once I have that, I have let this class know that, okay, we are using the Vuforia API. So please, recognize the classes that I'm going to type here later. Okay, then the start and the update, I don't need these. I will just delete them away. Okay, then I'll create a public function, public void toggle AR. Okay, and then this function will handle the turning on and off of our AR behavior. So before I turn on or off the behavior, I first want to check whether it's even on or off. So here I will check if Vuforia behavior dot instance dot enable. Okay, so here I'll just add a comment here, check if Vuforia is enabled. I'll just continue commenting. All right, so I'll check if it's enabled. If it is enabled, then I want to turn off Vuforia here. Okay, then I will add another else here. Else, if else, and then if Vuforia is not enabled, I will turn on Vuforia. Okay, let me just zoom in a bit. Okay, so this is basically what I will use my function for. I will check if Vuforia is enabled. If it is, I will turn it off. If it's not enabled, I will turn it on. Okay, so right now you can see that this Vuforia behavior, this class here is recognized by our class here. Okay, that's because I have this using Vuforia line up here. Okay, if I were to delete this away, okay, if I were to delete this away, you'll see that instantly I have this red squiggly line, okay, telling me it does not exist because it doesn't know what a Vuforia behavior is. So let me just undo. Okay, I bring back this line here, and you can see Vuforia behavior is now back to normal. No more error over here. Okay, so if my Vuforia is turned on, I want to turn it off. So how I'll do that is Vuforia behavior dot instance dot enable equals false. Okay, then I'll just take this line, I'll copy it, I'll paste it here, and then I'll flip this false to true so that I am turning on Vuforia again. Okay, so just like that, we've created a very simple function here to turn on and turn off Vuforia behavior. Okay, so what I'll do now is I'll head back to Unity. Okay, and then on my AR toggle button here, okay, let me remove this. Okay, on my AR toggle button here, I will drag my component, okay, my new script just now called AR toggle. I will drag it into my button. Okay, and then in my on click here, you can see on click, I will just add this AR toggle up here so that whenever I click, I will call the toggle AR function from my AR toggle class. Okay, so now that we've linked everything up properly, okay, we should be able to turn on and turn off our Vuforia AR camera on the fly. Okay, so one last thing to touch on before I show you how it works. Okay, you can go to the canvas here. Okay, make sure that your UI scale mode says scale with screen size. Okay, why we want scale with screen size? Because we deal with a lot of different screen sizes. Okay, so we never really know our users' device that they might use. Maybe some will use their phone, maybe some will use some kind of tablet, maybe some might even choose to use their laptop, right? You never know. Okay, so that's why we want to scale with screen size. Right, so what I will do now is I will save. Okay, I will save. I will look at my build settings, make sure everything is correct. Okay, then I will click build and run. So it will ask you this, so just click save. Yes. So I'll click build and run. Okay, then I'll just let it build here. Okay, so I will just show you my script again. Okay, if you wanna look at what I typed. Okay, then I will just wait for the build to start running on my phone. Okay, so in the meanwhile, just type this script out, and then if you've got any questions, just let me know. Esther, because the Unity is building, so I can't show that one. So I will just show you what's in the slide. Hang on. Okay, so your on click should look like this. Okay, the button on click should look like this. Yeah, AR toggle AR should look like this.
Sure. My AR toggle don't have the toggle AR leh.
Is the function, is it public?
Yeah.
Got any error or anything like that?
Error. There is warning saying the inconsistent line endings. Some are Mac OS, some are Windows.
Okay, that one is okay. Can you show me what's happening on your screen?
Okay. Yeah. Like that. Then I choose this AR toggle, then show me this.
Okay. You go back to your Visual Studio again.
I think you should drag the script instead of the button.
You go back to your Unity again. Let me see. Yeah, you try drag that one there.
It's the same one.
Yeah, okay. Then you just see the functions again. Interesting. Okay, can you remove the AR toggle script here?
Okay.
Yeah, remove it. Okay. Then you go to your Visual Studio again. Let me check something again. Visual Studio AR toggle. Okay, you add it back to the inspector. Add it back, add the component back. Then you just do the sequence again. Yeah. Okay, hang on. Let me see. your function is public, right? Can you set it to private and then save? And then after that, set it to public again. So that will like refresh the list. Okay, save. Okay, then by right, it shouldn't show up. Okay, then you set it to public again.
Okay, that's already.
Okay, interesting. Okay. Okay. Can. Alright, so my build is ready. So let me hop over to my phone. Okay, let me share my screen. Where's my, okay. Okay, you should be able to see my screen now. Okay, so I'll just go over to project. Okay, don't mind my messy table. Okay, so you can see that along with my Shock Pikachu, I now have this toggle AR button here. Okay, so once I click on this button, I tap on it. Okay, you can see that my screen, my camera effectively turns off. Okay, and then now I'm moving my phone. Okay, you can't really see. Okay, but I'm moving my phone. Okay, but you will see that my astronaut just stays there, right? It doesn't move, even though my camera is off. And then when I click my toggle AR again, okay, you can see that now when I detect the Pikachu and I move my phone, okay, the astronaut stays where it is. Okay, so this is probably one of the, it's related to the issue that Leon brought up just now. Okay, when I lose my image, okay, basically when I tap on toggle AR, when I lose my image, okay, Vuforia doesn't really know what to do with this model right now. Okay, there's no image there, but the astronaut's still there. Okay, so how do we know whether or not our image is being tracked or not, whether our image is on the screen or not? Okay, so let's take a look at that. Okay, so I'll just show again. I tap on my toggle AR. Okay, Vuforia comes back. Okay, when I tap on toggle AR, it disappears. Okay, my screen goes black, and then tap on it, it comes back on again. Okay, so that's how we can quickly just add the functionality of having our AR behavior be turned on and off in our applications. Okay, so I will just show the script and how to set that up one more time before I move on. So share my screen. Oh, wrong screen. Hang on. Okay. Okay, so here is my script. I have this AR toggle class, and in the class, I have this important line up here using Vuforia. And I have this public toggle AR function. Inside the function, I check if Vuforia is enabled. If it is, I turn it off. If it's not enabled, I just turn it on. Once I have this class set up, I can go to Unity. Okay, then on Unity, I have this canvas here. And on my canvas, I have this button called, just name it AR toggle. Okay, so you'll be in charge of toggling my AR on and off. And then inside this button, okay, in the inspector here, I have this AR toggle component that I just drag and drop. And then in the on click, I will just drag it here, and I will link it to my function, toggle AR. All right, so that is how we just quickly set up this AR toggling on and off. All right, so now let's take a look at how we can know whether our image is being tracked or not. Okay, so let me go back to my slides. All right, so another important feature for our application will be to know whether or not things are being tracked or not. All right, so in order to do this effectively, we will utilize a new type of data known as a dictionary. Right, so I believe all of you have heard of dictionary as in the physical dictionary, right? We flip through dictionary, look for a word, look for its meaning. Okay, so we'll use something called a dictionary in C# now. Okay, so a dictionary is a data type that stores key value pairs. Okay, so these key value pairs can be any type that we want. Okay, so if you look at the example, okay, let me turn on my laser pointer. All right, so if we look at this example over here, dictionary, sharp angled bracket, in string, blah, blah, blah. Okay, this is how we create a dictionary. Okay, so I just want you all to focus here first in the first part, dictionary, angle bracket, int, comma, string. Okay, just focus here first. Okay, so this int string, this sharp bracket, angled bracket that we have here, okay, this is the key value pair. Okay, so what I'm telling this dictionary is I want you to store pairs of integer and string. Okay, so now when I look at the next line here, if I say new dictionary and then square bracket 0 equals new text, I'm telling the dictionary, okay, I want you to store this pair that has int 0 and string new text. Okay, so now the dictionary will have this int string pair, 0 new text. Okay, so then once I have that, I can access the value of a pair, okay, by providing the key to the dictionary. So in this example line here, debug.log, a new dictionary square bracket 0 square bracket, okay, it will result in the new text being printed in the console. So new text is what I have up here. All right, so if you look at this, if you just look at this line here, as well as this line over here, you may notice that this looks very similar to the arrays that we have been using in I3E last sem. Right, so it's quite similar, except last time when we use arrays, it looked like this, right? New dictionary square bracket 0 square bracket, and then that will give us the value of that item inside the array. Okay, but for a dictionary, okay, it does not have to be integer and string all the time. Okay, I can say game object and boolean. Okay, I can say I can even say string and string. Okay, because if you think about it, okay, let's say if it's a string and string, okay, then it will be very similar to our English dictionary. Okay, so if you think of our dictionary, is essentially a key value pair of string and string. Okay, and then the key is basically the word, and then the value is basically the definition. Right, so in a dictionary, we always look for the word, right? So let's say I want to know what is the meaning. I want to know what is the meaning of, let's say, jump. I want to know what is a jump. So I'll look for the word jump, which is the key, and then the dictionary will give me the value, which is the definition. What does jump mean? Okay, so when we are scripting, we can store any data we want as our key and our value. Okay, so this one is really up to your own creativity in a sense. So for our use case for Vuforia, okay, we will use our dictionary to track whether our game object is in the scene or not. So what we'll do is we will create a key value pair of game object and Boolean. So game object will just basically be our object in the scene, and then Boolean will just be whether true or false, whether it's on the screen or it's not on the screen. Right, so we will declare our dictionary variable like this: private dictionary, then angle bracket, game object and Boolean. Okay, so game object is our key, Boolean is our value. Okay, so this is how we will declare it. And then once we declare that, we want to write a function in our class to keep track of our objects. Okay, so we just want to track whether objects are being tracked or not. So in this function, I will check if my object to track is not null. Okay, then I will set my dictionary key value pair to true. That means I'm tracking an object. Okay, so you'll see that previously, I will go back a few slides. Okay, previously, in the int string key value pair, I have to pass in an integer. Right, I pass in 0, then it gives me the string new text. Okay, but when you're using something like what we are going to do later, which is dictionary for game object and Boolean, inside the square bracket, instead of a number, I can straight away pass in the game object. Okay, when I pass in the game object, the dictionary will give me the Boolean value of that game object. Okay, so when it gives me that value, I will just set it to true to know that, okay, this object is being tracked. Okay, so once we have these functions set up, we'll go to our image target in Unity again. Okay, then we'll look for this component called default trackable event handler. And then within this component, there are a few settings here. Okay, there's something called on target found. Okay, so this on target found is essentially like our what we saw in our button just now on click. Okay, but except this this section here, you will run any functions that is linked here when our target is tracked by our AR application. So what we'll do is we will add in the function we've just written. Okay, and then when our object is found, when our object is being tracked by Vuforia, okay, it will call this function, this object track function. So now our dictionary will be updated. Right, so basically when this item is found in Unity, it will tell our class that, okay, you can update your dictionary that this object is being tracked. Okay, so once we have linked that all together, okay, we will want to display whether or not it works, right? So typically, in order to know whether something is working, we will usually use debug.log, right? Because that's the most convenient, is the fastest to set up. Okay, but in the case of AR and in the case of creating for any kind of mobile devices, okay, we can't really use debug.log because when we test, we don't have the console on our AR application. So instead, we will use a canvas and a text object. All right, so this will just help us display our our debugging text onto the screen in our phone. So first, we will just create a canvas and a text object in Unity, and then we'll create a public text variable in our class. And then we will link it together by dragging the text object into the inspector. Then what we'll do is we'll then use that text object to display the status of our 3D objects. Okay, and to do that, we will use something called a for each loop. Okay, so a for each loop is similar to a for loop. Okay, it iterates through an array. So previously we have our for loop, right? We write for int I equals 0 and I less than the array dot length, then plus plus I, then do stuff. So we were that was it's quite long and it's not that intuitive to write. Okay, so a for each loop is easier to write. Okay, so we will take a look at that now. Okay, so you see in the for loop on the left, okay, let's say I have this integer array here called new int array. And then for my for loop, I have to for int I equals 0, I less than new array dot length plus plus I. Then I have to debug dot log new int array square bracket I. Okay, so that is it is a lot longer, right? A lot harder to write because we also have to remember all these expressions at the top here, where what goes where, right? And I have also seen a lot of people, instead of typing semicolon here, put comma, or they mix up the order here, things like that, right? So it can be a bit of a hassle to write your for loop. Compared to the for each loop over on the right, you can see that I just type for each, and then I say int I in my new int array. I can just debug dot log I. Okay, so a lot simpler to write. Okay, so instead of having to say int I is 0 plus plus I and then provide the I as an index here, I can simply just say int I in new int array, then debug dot log I. Okay, and that is because the I over here, this int I, it itself holds the value of the integer inside this new int array. Okay, we can use it directly like this. We don't have to pass it in as an index. Okay, so when we compare these two, okay, we see that for loop is easier, the for each loop, sorry, is easier to write. Okay, it's a bit more intuitive, right? When you read it out, it sounds more like English, what we are used to, right? If I were to say for each integer I in new int array, debug.log, right? It sounds like a normal sentence compared to if I say for int I equals 0, I less than dot length, etc., etc. Okay, that doesn't sound like a normal sentence. Okay, so that makes the for each loop easier to write, okay, easier to understand as well, a bit more intuitive. So of course, this comes at a bit of a cost because the for each loop is more expensive. Okay, meaning it takes a bit of a longer time for your computer to process this for each loop compared to a for loop. Okay, but for the sake of like your own sanity and for your own convenience, okay, a for each loop, you can still use the for each loop if you want. Okay. This instance, we'll be using the for each loop, okay, with the dictionary. So for our use case, the element that we need to provide is a key value pair, all right, which is the key value pair is essentially what the dictionary uses. And the key value pair that we are using with our dictionary is a game object and a boolean, right? Game object is our key, boolean is our value. So how we'll write it is like this here, for each bracket, for each key value pair of game object and boolean that is named object status in our tracked object status dictionary, I will display this object status, okay, dot key dot name, essentially saying object status dot game object dot name plus object status dot value. Okay, the value is a boolean, so it will either be true or it will be false. Okay, then we will just call this function update object status in our update function. Okay, so that our text object will be being updated constantly. So now I will go into the demo. Okay, so this one might take a bit more time for you to follow. So don't worry if you're lagging behind, just let me know. Okay, so let me go over to my Unity. Alright, so now back in Unity, I'm going to set up my canvas. Okay, we're going to set up my canvas with a text. Okay, so I already have one set up. I just have to enable this. Okay, so for your text object, just make sure you have a font size that is larger. Okay, by default, the font size is quite small. I will just show you what the default font size is. Okay, the default font size looks like this. Right, which is super small when you are considering that once again we are dealing with our AR. Right, so this is super small. I will delete this away. Okay, the size that I have is about 75. You can set it to smaller if you want. Okay, and then for your horizontal overflow, I just set it as overflow. Vertical, I will also set it as overflow. All right, so just that, just to make sure that all the text doesn't get cut off. Okay, so this is what the canvas will look like. I will have one text here along with my button from just now. Okay, so once I have this set up, I can create my new class. Okay, so I'll go to my scripts folder. I will create C# script. Okay, then I'll just name it track objects. Okay. Okay, then in the tracked once the tracked object is created, I will just double click. Okay, once the compiling is done, okay, I will double click and then open in Visual Studio. Alright, so now with the tracked objects here, okay, what I'll do is, first I will create my dictionary. Okay, so I will show you how we do that. First, we just write dictionary. Okay, then angle bracket. So the type of my key value pair, you'll see that the prompt comes up dictionary, and then they'll say key and value. Okay, so they're asking you, okay, what type of object will your key be? What type of object will your value be? Okay, so for the key, I will say game object. And then for the value, it will be a Boolean. And then here, I'll give it a name here. I'll say tracked object status. Okay, equals to new dictionary and bracket and semicolon. Okay, so that's how we write our dictionary. I zoom in a bit more. Okay, so you can see. All right, so dictionary, then angle bracket, game object, comma Boolean, tracked object status equals new dictionary, game object, and Boolean again. So this is how we create a new dictionary. Okay, so now I will want to use this dictionary to start tracking whether my objects are being tracked or not. So what I'll do, I'll create a new public function down here, okay, after update, public void. So I'll say update status. Oh no, I'll just say object tracked, like that. So I'll just say object tracked. Then here is where I will just add a comment here. So hang on, add a comment here that will say update tracked status in dictionary. Right, so then here I will save. Okay, then here is where we will start typing our code. Okay, so one thing I forgot to do was inside my bracket here, okay, I will want to add in a parameter. So here my parameter will be a game object, and I will say object to track. Okay, so what will happen is this parameter here, this object to track, it will be passed in by the Unity inspector. Okay, later we will link it up over there in the inspector. Okay, so when this function is called, okay, what I want to do first is I want to check. I want to check whether this parameter that you pass in, this object to track, whether it is null or not. Okay, so I will just add one more comment here. Okay, check if game object that is passed in is null. Okay. Okay, so if the game object, if the game object is null, I will do nothing. Okay, so do nothing basically means I will stop the function, so I will just return, okay, and I will stop the function. Okay, so if the game object that was passed in is is not null, then I will update my dictionary. Okay, so my dictionary up here is called tracked object status. Okay, so I'll just copy the name, I'll paste it here. Okay, so tracked object status is my the dictionary, and I want to access the key value pair for this game object here. So I have to pass in the key. So in this case, the key itself is already a game object. So you can already see that when I type this square bracket, okay, the prompt over here asks for game object key. You can see the prompt over here, a bit small, okay, but it says game object key. So I have to pass in a game object over here. So just nice, I already have a game object being given to me here in the parameter. So I will just copy this and I will paste it here. I'll just say this is equals to true. Okay, so that lets my that updates my dictionary to say that okay, this game object that has been passed in is now true. True meaning is being tracked by our Vuforia application. Okay, so once that is done, what we want to do now is we want to link our text object that we created just now, okay, with this dictionary. Okay, so what I'll do is here I will create a public text object. You'll notice that I try to type text, it gives me this red squiggly line, okay, and then the error does not exist. Okay, so why that happens is because I have not included the UI using Unity engine.ui line up here. Okay, so let's fix that. I will say I'll add one more line here. I can just Control D to duplicate this line, and then I'll just Unity engine.ui. Okay, so once I add that line in, you'll see that text is now not an error anymore. So I'll just say public text debug text. Okay, so what I'll do is this debug text, I will just drag and drop it in later in my inspector. Okay, so debug text, I will go to my update. Okay, I'll go to my update, and then here is where I will update my debug text. So what I'll do here in update, I'll just add an if statement, if tracked object status dot count more than 0. Okay, so why I'm doing this, let me add a comment here. Check that there is something in the dictionary. Okay, so why I want to check first is because if there's nothing inside the dictionary, then there's no point for me updating my my text, right? So I'll only do something if I will just write here update the debug text. So I'll only update my debug text if there is something inside my dictionary. So I'll just say debug text dot text equals blank. So I'll just reset my text every frame. And then after that, I'll run my for each loop. Okay, so for each loop, first you have to add in the element. Okay, what is the type of element inside the dictionary? In this case, is our key value pair. Okay, then angle bracket. Then the key is a game object type. The value is a Boolean type. And here I'll just give it a name. I'll say object status in. Then next is in my tracked object status dictionary. Here, so go through every key value pair in the dictionary. All right, so this for loop will essentially look through every single pair inside our dictionary. And then what we'll do there after that is debug text class equals object status dot key dot name. Okay, so essentially we'll be printing out the name of the game object plus, and here I'll just put a colon here, plus object status dot value, and then at the end I'll just add a new line. Okay, because I might have more than one object. Alright, so with this setup, every frame, every update, we will go through our tracked object status dictionary. Okay, and then we'll look for every single object that's being tracked. And then once we have those objects, we can debug text.text. We will show the game object name, and we will show the game object status, whether it's being tracked or not. Okay, so I will just delete this start function. With this, okay, then I'll zoom out and I will take a screenshot. Okay, then I will share it in our chat. Okay. Okay, so in this class, we should have two functions, one update and then one object tracked function down here. Okay, so once this class is set up properly, we will go back to Unity, okay, and then we will link our objects. So I'll head over to Unity now. Okay, then I will create a new empty object. Okay, so this new empty object is the object tracker. what I'll do is I will drag and drop my tracker. So it is called the tracked objects component. I will just drag it here. Okay, so you'll see that this tracked objects component, it has this debug text that is right now it's none. So what I'll do is I will just drag my text object into the debug text. Okay, so once I have dragged that, I've linked that properly. Now what's left to do is I have to link it to my image target. Okay, so I will select my image target. Okay, I will exit the 2D mode. I'll go to my image target. Okay, so for my first image target is my Pikachu. Oops, let me remove this. Okay, so you will see that inside the image target, there is this component here called default observer event handler. Okay, so this is where you will find this on target found. Okay, so when on target found, what we want to happen is we will add this event. Okay, then what I'll do is I will drag my object tracker over here, and then I will link my tracked objects object track function. Okay, so what game object do I want to track? What game object am I tracking? Right, I will just link my astronaut like that. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm telling this image target, okay, whenever you are found, okay, you have to update my dictionary using this object track function. Okay, and then you have to pass in the object that you're holding, which is the astronaut. Okay, so now whenever the Vuforia application finds this astronaut, or rather it finds this Pikachu and it displays the astronaut, okay, it will tell my dictionary that the astronaut has been found. Okay, so we'll do that with the rest of the images as well. Okay, so hang on, let me remove these. Okay, so same thing on target found, I will press this plus. Then I will drag my object tracker and I will link it to my object tracked function, and I will drag my child object in here. Okay, so I'm going to repeat this for the rest of the objects. Okay, so same thing, plus, and then object tracker, and then tracked objects. Okay, and then link my object here. Okay, so that is how we set up our tracking of objects. Okay, so now I will save. Okay, I will save, and then with that, our object tracking should work. Alright, so now once again, I will build and run. Okay, just make sure everything is correct. Okay, I will build and run. Okay, then I will let it save. Okay, then I will let it build and run, and we'll see the result on my phone. Okay, so if you have any difficulties typing out the code or linking the correct stuff to each other, let me know, okay, in the chat.
Sure, the object tracker, you use 3D object or?
I just create an empty object.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, it just has to be an empty object. Okay, so the build has completed. Now I will go over to my phone. Okay, then I will show you how it looks like. All right, so hang on while I load up my phone. just realized I've been on mute. Okay, so I will just look at the, let me go back to the Unity part. Did you all hear me talking about the object loss part? No, right?
No.
Okay, that was a waste. Okay. All right, so what I did just now, okay, for the object lost, okay, what I was doing is the object track. You all saw what I was doing. Okay, I copy pasted this. Okay, because I want to know whether or not the object is being has been lost or not, right? So I copy the entire thing here because the process is the same, right? Basically, I will call this function, this object loss function in my, oh my god, okay, sorry, the drilling is getting to me, I'm going crazy. Okay, so the object lost, okay, is the same process as the object tracked. Okay, so I just copy pasted down here. So same thing, I will link this object lost in my inspector later. Okay, just that the only difference is now I'm setting my dictionary to false. Okay, instead of up here, which is true. So once I have this object lost function set up, I can go to Unity. Okay, then I will do this. I will add this object lost function to my on target lost. Okay, so how I did it, same thing. I just click plus, then I drag my object tracker, and then I just look for the function. All right, so you can see that the setup is more or less exactly the same for on target found and on target lost. Just that the function that you link, okay, make sure it's correct. The top one should be object tracked. The bottom one is object lost. So I do this for all my image targets. I do this for the astronaut target, for the drill target, and for the drone target. All right, so now that we have this set up, okay, we now have our class that can keep track of whether our objects are in the scene and whether they are not in the scene. Okay, so this setup will sort of lead into the solution for one of Leon's questions just now, which is the object, the image is not there, but the object's still there. Okay, so now that we have this, we will know whether the image is there or not, which is over here in this on target lost. Okay, so once you have linked this on target lost to this function here, this is how we can also control whether the image, the 3D object appears or not. Okay, so that part I will leave it to you guys. Okay, so now I've just shown you the found and lost, how we want to link functions to those events. Okay, so when the image is lost, how do you make that 3D model disappear? Okay, that final part, I will let you all think about that. All right, so that is what I was talking about when I was muted. Okay, so now I will go back to the slides. Okay, and then we will just summarize this lesson. All right, so using the Vuforia Target Manager, which is on the website, okay, we can create our custom targets and our custom databases. All right, and then we can use a combination of UI objects, like our button, our text object, all right, and some Vuforia functionality, okay, to toggle our AR on or off. Okay, we did that with our button. And we can also use the on target found, on target lost, to track whether our objects are in the scene or not. Okay, so by using this logic, okay, we can implement a number of different features. Okay, so things like if we have the multiple image targets, maybe when image A and image B are both being tracked, okay, maybe something will happen. Maybe A will spawn one astronaut, B will spawn one drill, and then when A and B are in the same scene being tracked, then the astronaut will like go to the drill and use the drill, something like that. Or we can also make it so that we only want certain buttons, certain UI buttons to appear when a certain 3D object is spawned on our screen. And so those are just some ideas, right? Some different ways, different implementations, different features that we can have in our application, okay, by using this logic, okay, this material that we've looked at today for the lesson. Okay, so that is the end of this lesson, this set of slides. Okay, we still have one more short lesson. Okay, but before that, let's go for a short break. Okay, just sort of digest what you all have learned and what you all have seen today. Okay, so we'll go on a short break until about 11:40. Okay, 11:40, just 5 minutes. Okay, because I also understand you all need to go to school for EXD, so that's why I'm trying to finish this faster. Okay, so let's just go for a short 5 minute break. We'll come back and then I will continue with the rest of the class. Okay, so short break till 11:40 a.m. Okay, so see you all back. Okay, so you can see here. Okay, let me on the laser pointer. Okay, so you can see here. Right, so write down the list here in ground plane. You mouse over, you should see these two options: ground plane stage and plane finder. Okay, so once you create a ground plane stage, okay, you should see this plane appear in your project. Okay, it says ground plane, and then there's 100 cm, 100 cm, 100 cm, this grid that appears on your screen. Okay, so in order to define what is the object to be spawned, okay, we have to add it as a child of this ground plane stage. Okay, so it's quite similar to what we did with the image target, right? For the image target, for the, let's say the astronaut, we want our 3D astronaut to be spawned. We add it as a child of our image target. Okay, but for this one, if we want our 3D object to be spawned when the user taps, we add it as a child of this ground plane stage. So once you have this set up, you have the ground plane stage and you have a child object, we have to set up this other object known as the plane finder. Okay, so you create a new plane finder object, and then when you have it selected, you just drag and drop your ground plane stage into the this component called the content positioning behavior. Right, there's this variable here, this property that says anchor stage. Okay, you just drag your ground plane stage, drag and drop it into this space over here. Alright, so once you do that, your project will now be able to detect surfaces, okay, your ground, okay, and use them as a virtual floor for you to spawn your objects on. Okay, so once we have that, we are ready to test whether it works, right? So we can either connect your phone, your Android phone, to your machine and then choose build and run, or you can use your laptop to test as well. Okay, so now I'll head into the demo. Okay, then we will now try and set this up together. Okay, so I'll go over to my Unity now. Okay, let me share Unity. Right, so in Unity, I've created a new scene. Okay, you can create a brand new scene. And then in this scene, the only active things I have are these. Okay, the only things I have are this light and this AR camera. Okay, Yushen saying did not catch the object loss part. Okay, don't worry, I will be recording some demos as well. Okay, probably tonight or tomorrow I will get them up on Git. Okay, so you can refer to those. Right, so for now, let's continue trying this ground plane first. Okay, Right, so create a new scene, brand new scene, and in this scene, just create a directional light, okay, and then one AR camera. Okay, so I have some disabled stuff here, just ignore that for now. Okay, so the only things you should have in your scene are your directional light and a AR camera. Okay, so once you have that in, okay, we can start adding our ground plane stage. So let's set up the ground plane stage. We go game object, Euphoria engine. Okay, and then Euphoria engine, from there you look for ground plane. And then you look for ground plane stage. Okay, so click on that. Okay, then there will be this new object here. Just set the name as the default name. And then you can also see in your scene, there's now this grid that appears on your scene. It just says ground plane, and then as I was saying, there are these 100 cm markings all around. Okay, so having this here will allow Euphoria to sort of look for the ground. Okay, so now we need to define what is the 3D object to spawn when the user taps on the screen. So what I'll do is I'll go into my sample resources. I'll go and look for my astronaut again. Okay, then I'll drag the astronaut to be a child of this ground plane stage. It is now a child. Alright, so once I have that set up, I'm essentially telling Euphoria that, okay, when my user taps on the screen later, I want to spawn an astronaut on wherever you detect the ground on. Right, so that is the first object set up properly, our ground plane stage. Now we need to add our plane finder. So I'll go game object, Euphoria engine, and then ground plane, plane finder. Okay, so the name I'll just leave it as default again. Okay, then in the plane finder, if we look over to the right of the inspector, you'll see that there's this component called content positioning behavior. All right, so this content positioning behavior is where we need to link our ground plane stage to. Right, we can see that inside this component, there's this anchor stage. Okay, and then in this anchor stage, currently there is none. Right, so because it's none, I'm going to drag this ground plane stage in, okay, so that my plane finder knows what is the ground plane stage to use. Okay, essentially, I'm telling the plane finder that I want to spawn this astronaut later. So with that set up, I can save it, save the scene. Okay, then our application is more or less ready to start tracking the ground and spawning our astronaut. Okay, so same thing, if you want to test, you can either use a laptop or you can use the build settings and then connect your phone and build and run. Okay, so I have the build on my phone. Hang on. Oh, no, okay, hang on. I'm going to build again. Okay, so I did something wrong just now. My build, I built a wrong scene. Okay, instead of this new scene, I built this sample scene. So I'm going to delete this sample scene and then I'll add in this new scene. Okay, this new scene, I named it ground plane demo. Okay, so now I will build it again. Okay, so just let it build, and then once it's ready, I will transfer over to my phone, and then we will see how that works. Okay, so while it's building, the rest of you can get your project your scene set up, and then you can try and test it. If anyone is having issues getting this ground plane stage set up, let me know in the chat. Okay, so usually if you point, you're talking about not being able to test because you're on your laptop, right? So if you test using your laptop camera, I think you should still be able to try and point your laptop to the ground, and then you click on the game screen. Okay, so my phone is installing the APK. Once that's done, I can show you all what it looks like on the phone. Okay, so it's done on my phone. So let me change over to my phone. All right, so now you all should be able to see my phone screen. So I'm going to share
the application. Right, so now I'm in my application. You should be able to see this small sort of this crosshair. Okay, this target here. Okay, this square outline. Okay, this is basically telling you where the ground is. Right, so now when I tap on my screen, okay, I will spawn an astronaut, okay, on the ground that is detected. Okay, then I can move around, okay, and I can look, can go up and down and look at this astronaut. Okay, so whenever I tap my screen again, okay, another astronaut will appear, okay, and I can just keep tapping to spawn as many astronauts as I want. Okay, so now I have like a band of astronauts. Okay, so I can change my angle. I can go from the top. I can look down. I can go from the side, go from the bottom. Okay, and I can look at the models that have been spawned on my ground, on my virtual ground.
Right, so with just those two simple objects that we added to our scene, okay, we have created this additional functionality in our AR application, okay, of trackerless AR. Right, we don't need our image target. We don't need any particular target. We just need our floor. Okay, and then Vuforia will look for the floor and spawn our objects correctly on the floor. Okay, so that is the ground plane stage. Okay, so anyone having any issue setting up their ground plane stage? If you have any issue, just let me know. Yeah, I'll just pause here a bit here. Just wait for anyone to have any issues. Yeah, I'll pause for maybe about 2-3 minutes. No issues, then I will move on. All right, so if you don't have any issues, I will move on. So if you can't test it, I believe you can test on your laptop. Okay, later I will, when I'm doing my recordings, I will test it out as well, and then I'll include it in the recording. Alright, so I will move on with the lesson. Okay, so that we've taken a look at the ground plane stage, okay, how we can spawn things without trackers onto our physical floor. Right, so now I will move on. We'll talk about the mid-air stage. Okay, so the mid-air stage, okay, gives our application a trackable space where we can spawn a floating object. Okay, so basically that's why it's called a mid-air stage. Okay, so what our AR camera will do is that it will look around in this environment and look for some trackable features. Okay, and then it will use them to place the mid-air stage. So same thing, our users will then be able to tap on their screen, okay, and then they can spawn objects onto this mid-air stage. So similarly, to get this feature in our project, we need to add two objects. One is the stage itself, the mid-air stage. Another is the mid-air positioner. Alright, so these objects can be found in game object, Vuforia, and then mid-air. Okay, so you can see over here in the image at the bottom. So Vuforia engine, mid-air, and then you can see these two objects. Alright, so let's create those. Okay, so okay, there's a error here. Shouldn't say ground plane, it should say mid-air. So once the mid-air stage object has appeared, okay, you should see this 3D axis. Okay, instead of a grid like what we saw in the ground plane, now we should see this 3D axis, okay, with 100 cm markings on each axis. Right, so same thing, to define what will be spawned when our user taps, we just add it as a child of the object. Okay, so when you add it, initially, this is what it will look like. And then when you add the child object, you will see it here like this. So the setup is once again very similar. We will add the mid-air positioner object. And then in the mid-air positioner, you will see this behavior called content positioning behavior. Okay, and same thing, it has this anchor stage, which by default, it will be none. What we will need to do is we'll need to drag and drop our mid-air stage into this anchor stage. Okay, so once you do that, the project will now be able to detect our environment. Okay, it will try and look for trackable features. Okay, and then that will be our sort of our mid-air stage. Okay, so same thing to track whether it works. Okay, we will connect the device. Okay, and then we will build and run. Okay, so I will head over to Unity again. Okay, then we will, oops. Okay, then our demo how we can get this all set up. Okay, so back in Unity. Okay, so this is our previous ground plane stage, right? So I'm going to just select these two and I will disable it first. Okay, why I'm disabling it is because Vuforia only works with one stage at one time. Okay, it is possible to switch between ground plane and mid-air within the same scene, within the same project. Okay, but that one is a bit more advanced. So we will just do one by one. So now I'll do the mid-air stage. So I'll go to game object, Vuforia engine, and then mid-air, and I'll first set up my stage. Okay, so the mid-air stage, okay, will look like this. Let me zoom in. Okay, you'll see this axis created in your scene, okay, with the 100 cm markings. Okay, so in my mid-air stage, it's a bit more fitting if I use the drone. So I'm going to drag in the drone here. Okay, so the drone is up there. I'll just move it down a bit. Yeah, I'll move it here. Okay, so now, whenever I've defined it such that whenever my user taps the screen, this drone should appear on their screens later. So with this mid-air stage set up, now I'll need to add in my positioner. Alright, so same thing, game object, Euphoria, mid-air, and then mid-air positioner. Okay, so the name, just leave it as default. And then if we look at the mid-air positioner inspector, and we look down, there is this content positioning behavior. Okay, and once again, the anchor stage is none. Okay, so same thing, I will just drag my mid-air stage into the anchor stage. Okay, and then with that set up, now I have successfully created this mid-air stage and this spawning feature in my AR application. Okay, so same thing, I'm going to view settings, then I'm going to build and run. Okay, or I can build, and then I will load up on my phone and I will show you. So I already have it loaded on my phone. Let me just double check that it works properly. Okay, it does. So let me share my phone screen, and then we will see how this looks like on the phone. So let me head over to my phone.
Alright, so you should be seeing my phone screen right now. So let me just go and open the application. Now it's not wanting to work. Okay, hang on, let me troubleshoot a bit. Okay, so it seems to be working. Let me. Okay, no, doesn't want to work again. Okay, hang on.
Sure, it should be showing the drone or the sphere up.
Sorry, Leon, what? Did you say something?
Sure, is it supposed to be showing the sphere or the drone?
The screen or the what?
No, I mean the mid-air plane. Should it be showing the sphere or the drone, the model?
That one is up to you. You can choose either the sphere or the drone.
Oh no, because I put drone and then it still shows the sphere.
Like you see a green color sphere, right?
Yeah.
Also, that one is sort of like the target, like a crosshair.
Oh, okay.
You remember just now during the ground plane, I showed there was this square outline. That one is like our crosshair, where our object will appear. So this green color sphere you see is like your crosshair. So
okay.
yeah, okay, let me try and get it working on my phone to show you all.
Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen now. Looks like it's working. Okay, so now I'm in the kitchen. All right, so you can see this is the green sphere that Leon was talking about. Okay, so this sphere is sort of like a crosshair. So once I tap my screen, okay, I can see that my drone is created here. Okay, so same thing, I can go around, I can look at my drone. Okay, I think the rotation is a bit off. I might have to fix that in my project. Okay, but I can see that now it is created in my scene. Okay, and I don't need any tracker, don't need any images, any physical trackers in my scene. I just need the environment itself. The environment is one big tracker. All right, so that is how we can get our mid-air stage to work and how we can spawn our items in mid-air. All right, so I will stop sharing my screen and then I'll go back to my desktop. All right. Okay, so that is how we can quickly set up our mid-air stage. Okay, and how we can use trackerless spawning for our AR applications. All right, so just to summarize what we've seen, okay, we can use this ground plane and this mid-air stage, and then we can have a very simple implementation of markerless AR. Okay, so we don't need any images to be printed. We don't need to show some image on our screen and have people scan them. Okay, we can just use the environment, use the surfaces and spaces, and use those as tracking target instead. Okay, so just think about how you can use this feature, okay, if it fits your concept for your assignment one, and use and add on to your traditional marker-based AR. Okay, so by right, there is this CA1 exercise. Okay, but I know you all are short on time. You also have to travel. Okay, so I'll not ask you all to do this now. Okay, so instead I will ask you all to do this, let's say by this end of today. Okay, right, you all have EXD until evening, then you all go home. Then I want you all to complete this exercise. Okay, so for this exercise, what you need to do is use multiple different ground plane or mid-air stages. Okay, so just now we only had one. So what I want you to try is try and make different ground plane stages or mid-air stages. Okay, and then using a UI button, I want you to swap between the different stages. Okay, so what we are trying to achieve here is, I will just show you my Unity again. Okay, so I was doing this with my ground planes. Okay, so what we are trying to do is with these multiple ground planes over here. Okay, yeah, my Unity, yeah. Okay, so all these ground plane stages, essentially one ground plane is one model. Okay, so what I want you all to do is swap between these ground planes so that whenever I tap on the screen, I'm spawning something different. Right, just now we only saw one ground plane, I tap and then the astronaut appears. So this exercise, I want you all to try when you press a UI button, instead of astronaut, I will spawn maybe a drone. Then when I tap the button again, instead of the drone, I will spawn maybe a drill. And then if I tap again, then from the drill, I will go back to the astronaut. Okay, so that is what I want you all to try, okay, for this exercise.
Okay, so I will just show the requirement again. Okay, so this is the requirement. Okay, so once you have this project done, okay, you can go to Google Classroom. Okay, there's a link over in the slide. Zip up and then submit the project. Okay, so there are some bonus marks if you're able to have both multiple ground plane and mid-air stages, okay, being cycled in one scene, then that is some bonus marks for you. All right. Okay, so anyone have any questions regarding the stages and regarding this exercise? Okay, I think there is no question for now. Okay, but if you have any questions as you're attempting the exercise, okay, or along the way you think of something, then you can just let me know. You can either PM me or you can type it in the class channel. Okay, so that is the end of today's lesson. Okay, just one final thing to share with you guys, which is the assignment one. Okay, so let's saying submit tonight. Yes, tonight 2359. Okay, so tonight 2359, okay, submit. Tomorrow 2359. Is that what you're suggesting? Let me see. Okay, considering you all have to travel to school today, like right after this, and then you all still have to travel home. Okay, I can give you all more time. Okay, I can give you all 2359 tomorrow. Okay. Okay, then since you all have until tomorrow, maybe does that mean I can expect more from you all also? Okay, I hope you all at least try the bonus marks criteria. Okay. Okay, since you all have more time. Okay, so one last thing before I let you all go, okay, which is your assignment brief. Okay, I'll just quickly go through that. Okay, and then we will end the lesson. Okay, so for the assignment, I think there are still two missing groups. Let me just double check that quickly now. Okay, yeah, so right now there are five. 2, 3, 4, 5. Right now there are 5 groups, but right, I should have 7. So there are 2 groups that have not entered your name into the spreadsheet. So I won't say who you are, but please go and form up your team and then enter that into the spreadsheet. All right, so let's look at the assignment brief now. All right, so for your assignment 1, it will be an AR experience. Okay, so the AR experience, the only scope is that it should be related to COVID. All right. So for this AR application, it can either be an enhancement to informative content, okay, meaning, let's say, I'm sure some of you all, when you go out, you all probably see some kind of posters or images, right, about the government's messages about COVID or things like that. Right, so you can enhance those posters, those images with your own AR content, okay? Or you can propose a redesign to existing COVID processes. So things like tapping in or scanning the QR code to tap in, things like that. Okay, so you can propose a redesign for those processes. Okay, or you can create a simple game or some kind of gamification, okay, for that's related to COVID lah. Okay, so maybe like when you tap in, when you use Trace Together, when you scan the QR code, maybe you get some kind of points, things like that. Okay, but it should still be some form of AR. All right, or maybe it can be AR. You scan something, and then there's like a some quiz pops up on your phone, and then you can do the quiz, things like that, right? Okay, so those are just some suggestions. Okay, so that is the overview of your assignment 1. And now we'll talk about some example scenarios. Okay, so maybe let's say for number 1, so safe entry, the QR code I was talking about, it usually is quite fast. Okay, however, there are still long queues. Okay, so maybe you can suggest some solution for that. Okay, and then those you can also try and create some kind of exhibition. Okay, so these exhibitions can either be informative, can be things like how to wash your hands, or it can also be some kind of virtual gallery, like the timeline of COVID in Singapore, things like that. Okay, so that is one scenario. Okay, so another scenario is that now with dining in, okay, two in a group, okay, there are still many people like challenging this 2 in a group kind of rule. Okay, so a lot of F&B operators and all those SDAs are very unhappy about this because there's nothing much they can do. So maybe you can come up with a solution for that. Okay, then next, there are more and more COVID professions popping up. Okay, then there might start to be a lack of training. Okay, because there are just too many people coming in, but not enough people to train them. So what can you do with AR to help train these people? Okay, and then last sample scenario, young children and elderly need more reminders to keep themselves safe. So how can you use AR to help them, to help remind them and help educate them? All right, so for your AR application, okay, based on your own proposed concept, so other than the flagship AR features, okay, over here, which is your image tracking, whatever tracking and all that, you may want to include at least one supplementary feature like some mini game, some quiz, that one you can discuss in your groups. Okay, so all the features in your app should work well enough for demo purposes. Okay, so that means at the end of the assignment, okay, the submission does not have to be a super polished, finished product. Okay, but it must at least be a proof of concept to show that, okay, whatever concept, whatever idea you have in your head, it can be done. Okay, it can be done, it can be rolled out into the real world. Okay, so that is the requirement. Okay, so for some guidelines here, okay, your end product will be assessed based on your technical production, okay, which is your testing, make sure there are no bugs, everything works properly. Okay, then your design and usage of physical markers, okay, you can choose not to use if you want. Okay, and then of course your visual audio cues, that one is more of your feedback in the UI, and then also the engagement value of your prototype. Okay, then when you're going through the process of creating your application, these are just some questions you might want to ask yourself. Okay, I won't go through all of them. You all can read through this list in your free time. Okay, just some questions to ask yourself. Okay, I'll go through the assignment weightage first. Okay, for the assignment weightage, your scripting, your project management, this is 30%. Okay, your usage of AR, okay, that's 30%. Okay, and then your UI, UX, okay, 10%. Your game juice, which is your feedback, 10%. Your collaboration, okay, 10%. And then lastly, there's a demo video and presentation slides component, which is also 10%. Okay, so all this adds up to a total of 100%. Okay, so you can see the main focus here is your scripting and your AR usage. Okay, so for your marking scheme, okay, this one, I won't go through in too much detail. Okay, you can look at it again when you have your free time. Okay, but to pass, you should use either of image tracking or your ground air targets. Okay, then you can toggle your camera on and off. Okay, then you have to register your user input. You have to use 3D models. Your models have to be textured. Okay, and then you have to at least be able to interact with your AR objects through UI elements. Okay, then your UI elements have to scale and adjust to different screens, and your users can enter and exit the application properly with no bugs. Okay, so all these criteria is to get a minimal passing rate. Okay, passing grade. Okay, then for the merit and the excellent grade, okay, you all can read through again yourselves, okay, and then try and come up with your own ideas. Okay, so now for your deliverables, what do you need to submit? Okay, you have to submit your Unity project. You have to submit one build, which will be an APK file. Okay, so I have a very limited amount of Android devices. If you need, you can ask me to loan you. Okay, and then okay, so that's number 2. Then number 3, you should have one video demo of your entire experience. So in this video demo, it will be good for you to narrate what's happening in the video. Okay, then number 4, you should have a set of README, okay, just in case I miss out something or there are some specific things you want me to look out for, you should include in this README. Then lastly, you should have your presentation slides. Okay, so because this assignment, okay, you're supposed to come up with a prototype, a demo. Okay, so the purpose of that demo, that prototype, is to present to people so that you can pitch your idea and get them to buy into your idea. So that's why you also need these presentation slides. All right, so those are your deliverables. Okay, there are 5 deliverables. And then lastly, the timeline. Okay, so first checkpoint is your ideation. So this one due by week 3. Just have to message me about your idea. Okay, then we will just discuss whether it's doable, whether it's too ambitious, things like that. Okay, then week 5, there will be a consultation. So it will be the same as what we've done before. I will open a link on Calendly, and then you'll book one slot, and then we will just meet and discuss. Okay, and then the final submission is week 6. Okay, one day before class 2359. Okay, so for you, it will be on Tuesday. Let me just see the date. Okay, it will be on Tuesday, 23rd November. Okay, 23rd November 2359. Okay, so one day before class on week 6. Okay, and then the usual late submission and plagiarism. Okay, don't submit late and don't copy other people's work. Okay, so this is your assignment 1 brief. Okay, you can find this brief, same thing, on your GitHub desktop repo. Okay, just pull and you should find the folder. In fact, let me just share that so you don't get lost in case someone cannot find it. Okay, so you go to the IM year 2.2 repo modules, go to the ITD module, and then look for assignment 1, and you should see the brief over here, and you can just refer to the brief anytime that you need to lah. All right, so at this stage, anyone got any questions about the assignment?
Unrelated to the assignment, but will we have to reclone the repository to get the new
No. So for the content, right, let me Just go over, I am year 2.2. Okay, so you should be seeing my GitHub desktop now. Right, so in your GitHub desktop, if you select your current repository to be IM year 2.2, there should be this pull option here. Just pull that and you should see all the new options, all the new material, sorry. Yep. Okay, any other questions or concerns?
Oh wait, also one more thing. I think you're already aware, but I'm not exactly sure how I'm supposed to test once again the floor plane, the ground plane, the airplane thing.
Yeah, the stages, the mid-air stage.
I'm not really sure how I'm supposed to test those since I don't really have an Android device on the ready, and mostly just that actually.
Yep, so regarding that, the last time I was teaching this, I was able to use a laptop. So I will just test again and see whether it's still true, because that's almost 1 year ago, so I need to test again. Okay, so if I can use the laptop to test, I will record that and show you how to do it. Okay, if not, then I will look for another alternative for you lah.
I see. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Yep. Okay, anyone else, any questions? Okay, any questions, any concerns? Okay, so take that as a no for now. Okay, but of course, same thing. If you have any questions that pop up after today's lesson, maybe on the way to school you think of something, okay, you can just either type it here on the channel for the class, or you can just PM me and I will answer you again. All right, so okay, thanks everyone for your time. Okay, now I will just end the lesson here. Okay, then and I tried to end as early as I could, okay, so to give you a bit more time. Okay, so thanks for your time. Any questions, message me. Okay, if no questions, then I will end the lesson here. All right, so thanks everyone.